Okay. Deal.
Well, there you go. It worked. It worked. Again, some Hollywood magic. Probably wouldn't want to agree so quickly. Here's something that you can take from this strategic mistake here. Don't rush to agreement. Do not rush to an agreement. Remember this simple point. It is much easier to take a no and turn it into a yes than take a yes and turn it into a no. To another exciting episode of Negotiate Anything. I'm Kwame Christian. I'm a business lawyer, mediator, professor, and the director of the American Negotiation Institute, where we conduct negotiation and conflict resolution trainings that make your difficult conversations easier. If you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you will be the first person to know when we produce new content. All right, everybody. It is another reaction video, and our producer, Maria, who is also the content and marketing manager at the American Negotiation Institute, is going to try to stump me to see if I can come up with some kind of lesson in negotiation, psychology, relationship building, communication, whatever it might be, from the random clips that she gives me. I haven't seen these clips before, and so we're going to see how I do. All right, let's get to it. Ha! It's The Office. Oh, this will be fun. This will be fun.
Agreed?
Agreed. But that's all, okay?
Yeah, discuss these things, please. Hello? I want my old job back. I want my old parking space back. I want a Sebring.
They don't make him anymore.
And I want Charles gone.
I'm not firing Charles. He's very valuable.
Okay, let's stop. Let's stop. Oh, this is great. This is great. I love this episode. Okay, so let's start off with this. So before, he was talking to his team, Pam and Ryan. He was trying to figure out what the strategy should be. And people really overlook this. For instance, I do trainings for procurement professionals. And I tell them all the time that the people you're going to negotiate with the most are the people who are on your team, your internal business clients, and the people you're negotiating with, because oftentimes you negotiate as teams. And so we have to think about these negotiations that occur before the negotiations. Who do I need to talk to beforehand to get people on board with the strategy? Okay. Also, when we think about it from Pam and Ryan's perspective, it's not just giving people advice and saying, hey, you should do it this way. We need to get clear commitments on what's going to happen, right? It's not just giving some advice and hoping for the best. It's like, hey, no, wait, Michael, no, do you agree to this? Are we on the same page? All right, let's run through some scenarios. That's another thing. One of the most important things for you to do before your negotiations, especially the big ones, is actually do a role play. Think about sports. You don't just talk about the strategy with the coach and then go into the game. No, you have some practice. You have some scrimmages. You run through some scenarios to see what's going to happen, and you can prepare for that. And so what would have been helpful is if they gave Michael some kind of prep in that fashion. They would have said, okay, this is the way that you should negotiate. Let's actually do it. All right, let's say these things. And then they would see how poorly Michael reacts. They would say, nope, let's bring it back, right? So we have to remember those negotiations before the negotiations. Those are incredibly, incredibly important. Role play, strategize, all that stuff, that's important. Now, another thing strategically they should have done is if Michael didn't want that guy to still be there, if he wanted him fired, strategically, he should have negotiated to make sure he wasn't at the table during the conversation, because not surprisingly, he says, no, okay, whoa, I don't want to be fired, right? That's the thing. You have to anticipate the moves of the other side, okay? And if you would have run through that scenario beforehand, they would have said, you know what? Having him at the negotiation table would cause a lot of problems. Let's try to strategically get it so that we're having this conversation in his absence so he can't defend himself at the negotiation table, right? Now, with the way that he started the negotiation, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that they actually had some pleasantries or something before that. I don't really mind too much him starting off the conversation, making it very clear what he wanted. I don't think that was too too bad. Of course, the tone was a little bit off, very aggressive and combative off the jump. Probably didn't need to start at 100, but as far as clearly articulating what you wanted as the beginning of the conversation, not too bad, okay? Not too bad. So let's continue. Let's see how this goes from here.
It's very kind of you to say, David.
I need him gone.
No.
Okay, then I want Pam back.
You already have a new receptionist. I guess.
Sales.
Thank you.
Pam's not a salesperson.
Yes, she.
Pause. Okay, so he went very quickly to his number 2. Let's assume this was a strategy. Again, this is Hollywood. These negotiations need to be compressed because typically negotiations can last over hours, over days, things like that. All right, so sometimes in negotiation, as in chess, you have a strategic sacrifice. I'm going to make this move, and it seems as though you're getting what you want, but really what I really want is behind that move, right? And so here in this situation, he says, okay, you're not going to get rid of this guy, fine. Well, I want Pam to be back on my team. There was a barrier, a presumed barrier. Well, we already have a receptionist. No, she doesn't need to be a receptionist. She can be in sales, right? And so that's creative problem solving. I think that was a really good move. Right? So you're thinking about it in terms of if-then scenarios. If she can't come back in this role, then she can come back in that role. That type of thing. I think coming to the table with multiple options is always a smart move, and finding a creative way around the perceived barriers is another smart move to make. Now, let's see how David responds to that. It seems as though he is not really sure about seeing Pam in that role of sales. So let's see what happens here.
Yes, she is. At the Michael Scott Paper Company, in its heyday.
That's right.
Okay. Please continue.
And Ryan.
Ryan cost Dunder Mifflin hundreds of thousands of dollars, Michael.
You know
Ryan.
Okay, well, that was pretty easy. He got Pam. The barrier was she doesn't have any sales experience. Responded with some objective evidence, right? Okay, yes, she does. She did sales with me. It was fine. All right, he didn't have a problem with it. Now, yes, Ryan is going to be a problem. Ryan is going to be a problem. So let's see how he gets around this. For people who don't know, Ryan caused some serious issues for the company in the past. I'm not going to go into those details because we have a limited amount of time. But just recognize there is some history here, and you can see the increased level of emotionality that came with even that suggestion of Ryan being brought back into this role. So let's see what happens from this point.
I don't care if Ryan murdered his entire family. He is like a son to me.
Do you realize what you're asking for here? You're talking about salary plus health benefits.
And dental
plus
this time.
insurance, taxes, Social Security for 3 people. This is a heck of a lot more than 60 grand. You're talking about a multi-million-dollar buyout.
These are our demands.
Your company cannot be worth that much.
Our company is worth nothing.
So let's pause. So one of the things that we need to do in negotiations is that we need to stay organized. We need to stay organized. So let's pay attention to what happened. So he made a request for Pam. Seems like he got it. I would want to have more clear commitments on that, but it seems as though there was a yes. Most of the times in these negotiations, agreements at the table are going to be tentative as they progress. And so, all right, it seems like they're on board, but I would have wanted to lock them down a little bit more. All right, so, but they continued in the conversation. He went on to Ryan. There was a clear, vehement emotional response about that where he said no. And so, but then the conversation shifted. The conversation shifted from Ryan to the company as a whole, and to not Ryan's value to the company, but Ryan's emotional connection to Michael. Now, here's the thing. For Michael, that might be important. But the question is, even though it's important for Michael, is that persuasive? Is that persuasive? That's the question we always need to ask ourselves. And a lot of times people have very egocentric styles of persuasion, meaning that they are going to try to persuade other people using things that they themselves would consider to be persuasive. So for Michael, he's like a son to me, is quite persuasive. That's the reason for him. Remember, this is a business deal. This is a business deal. The fact that he's like a son to you means nothing to the other side. Means absolutely nothing. So his response when it was Pam saying she does have sales experience was a legitimate and persuasive response to overcome that objection. Here, his response was purely emotional and focused on his own emotional satisfaction. Doesn't speak anything to the objections that they discussed. That was not the best strategic response. What he could have said is, listen, he's made amends for the mistakes he's made in the past. This wouldn't happen again for XYZ reasons. And he brings a particular set of skills that would be very beneficial to the company in its new state, right? And then they transitioned sloppily to the overall buyout, right? Again, that's confusing in a negotiation. When you jump from topic to topic, very confusing. So he should have focused on Ryan addressing those concerns, and then after that was addressed, shift to the entire company and what the entire package deal would have dealt with. Now let's say if it was a situation where he couldn't get Ryan in, he got Pam in, couldn't get Ryan in, then maybe what he says is at that point he can shift to the overall deal to see what could work best. But again, in a real type of situation, considering what Ryan did in the past, it would have been a complete no-go. But he's an important and very entertaining character, so we know Ryan's not going anywhere, at least not yet. All right, let's continue. Let's see where we are now.
Worth nothing. That's the difference between you and I. Business isn't about money to me, David. If tomorrow my company goes under, I will just start another paper company, and then another, and another, and another. I have no shortage of company names.
Michael.
That's one of them. Yes. These are our demands. This is what we want. Our balls are in your court.
Where do I start? Okay, again, let's talk about what's persuasive, what's not. In a business negotiation, saying business isn't about money to me is not persuasive. But what was persuasive is this. There is a cost to David and his company for Michael to continue to be annoying, right? This is costing time, it's costing them money, he's taking clients and all those things. And he made it very clear. He says, really, at this point, he has nothing to lose. Even if the business fails, he's going to keep on going because he doesn't care. And if you have an opponent who is not afraid to lose, that's a very dangerous opponent because they're more willing to take risks. In fact, there was a study that showed that in gambling type of scenarios, when you are perceived to be winning, when you think that you're ahead, you play more conservatively because of loss aversion. You don't want to lose what you've already won. But when you feel as though you're behind, it causes you to engage in more risk-taking activities. And so here for Michael, he says, if I lose, I don't care. I'm going to keep going. There's nothing, it doesn't matter to me. If I have nothing, it doesn't matter to me. And so David has to take this into consideration. He's like, okay, if I have this perpetual enemy causing me problems, how much am I willing to pay to get rid of that problem? Okay, now that part is very persuasive. Now, lastly, another thing here is notice how they all simultaneously leaned back. He stopped what he was saying and he leaned back and says, listen, he didn't say it the right way, of course, but he said the ball's in your court. I need you to respond. Silence is an often overlooked part of negotiation, and people often talk about it. They say it's powerful, everything like that, but few people use it really well. This is a situation where Michael is actually using silence in a very strategic and powerful way. Listen, I'm just going to sit back and let you speak because people feel compelled to share, to fill that gap with something, some kind of information. And a lot of times you would be shocked at what people will say out of the pressure that is created through awkwardness because silence is very awkward. And if you know the show at all, Michael is not afraid of creating awkward circumstances. So not surprised that he would be good at this. We actually have a whole episode, two episodes with my friend Julia Ewart from Perth, Australia. She's a negotiation and sales expert there. And she was talking about the strategic use of silence. Like those 2 episodes, only about silence and how to use it well. So I strongly recommend you checking that one out. So let's see how they respond to this silence.
Okay. Deal.
Well, there you go. It worked. It worked. Again, some Hollywood magic probably wouldn't want to agree so quickly. Here's something that you can take from this strategic mistake here. Don't rush to agreement. Do not rush to an agreement. Remember this simple point. It is much easier to take a no and turn it into a yes than take a yes and turn it into a no. So let me say it again. It's easier to turn a no into a yes than a yes into a no. Why is that? Because if you say no to somebody's request, they're making that request because they want you to say yes, right? And so if you say no, then you go back and think about it and you say, you know what, I thought about it, yes. What happens to this relationship? The relationship is in a good place. But if you say yes, then you go back and you talk to your team and you think about it and you say, whoa, 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 I can't do that. And then you come back and say, actually, you know how I said yes? It's actually no. What happens to that relationship? Boom. It's terrible, right? It's terrible. You lose a lot of credibility as well. People aren't going to take you seriously. It's going to be more difficult for them to trust you for the rest of this negotiation and just for the rest of the relationship. And that reputation spreads. People are going to talk about it. Hey, that Kwame guy, don't trust that guy, right? You don't want to put yourself in that position. So if I were David in this situation, I would have at least taken a second to talk to his friend here at the table, to call back to corporate to see what they said. Never feel pressured to make a decision in the moment, because here, under the pressure of awkwardness, he made what could have been a bad strategic decision, right? So take your time when it comes to decision making.
Okay.
Can we have the room, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Simple rule here to follow. No spiking the ball in negotiations. Okay, no spiking the ball. Those NFL touchdown celebrations, you can't do that. Cannot do that. Because if you let the other person know the amount of glee you are experiencing, seemingly at their expense, they're not going to feel great about it. Not going to feel great. And what often happens if somebody feels as though you've taken advantage of them in a situation, even if they agree and comply in this moment, they're going to find ways to try to undermine you in the future. So you never want to make it feel as though, man, we won, this is great, so obviously to the other side. You want to almost make it feel like there's a commensurate amount of pain. Yeah, we'll take it. And they'll say, yeah, we'll take it, right? And then you go back and in private, then you can spike the ball, celebrate with your friends, pop the champagne, all that stuff. But you have to have a little bit of restraint when you're getting what you want. One of my friends, Robin, she talked about in one of her negotiations, actually her episode on the YouTube page went live in December of 2020, and her episode of the podcast, I think, went live at the same time. She talks about how the fact in one of her salary negotiations, she was given an offer that was like 10K above her expectations. And so a lot of people, when they're confronted with that situation, what they do is they immediately say yes, and they're excited. You can hear their glee and all that stuff. But instead, she slowed down and she said, okay, well, I'm going to ask for more in this situation. She asked for more and she got more. Right? And so, again, you don't want your glee to undermine the relationship, and at the same time, you don't want your glee to undermine your negotiation strategy. So this was a fun one, Maria. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. If you liked this, of course, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be the first person to know when we get new content. Also, liking it helps us to spread the word to more people. This is free content. We like helping people with this content. So the more likes we get, the more YouTube shares our stuff. So please help us out in that way. And if you like the negotiation strategies and conflict resolution strategies you're hearing on this channel, check out the Negotiate Anything podcast, and also check out our free guides on the American Negotiation Institute website. And if your team might be interested in a negotiation training, let us know. We would love to work with you. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.